Trump, but his for counting all Americans, he has the highest net disapproval of his second term as president, and almost as high as after January 6th, the first time he was president.
Oh wow.
Negative net 16. He's got negative 16% approval. That is 40% approve, 56% of Americans don't approve of the job he's doing.
Yeah, that's amazing and everything like that. So that's how they're putting that in and everything like that. The case that I was going to bring up to Sasha's attention, I was actually going to bring it up yesterday and everything, is apparently there's a case where there's a whole notion of secularism and everything in the province of Quebec and everything like that. Because they've got a notion of whether you can wear religious symbols at work. And there are some people that are saying that this particular bill, which bans certain public sector employees from wearing religious symbols at work, violates the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom
Okay.
under Equality provision. So apparently that's something that's going on. So they have a Supreme Court as well, and they have some interesting cases also. So I guess they're trying to decide whether.
To get back to the war, yesterday the price of oil dropped to $88 a barrel after Trump said he was suspending bombing of oil targets for 5 days. Today, oil is back up to $102 a barrel.
Oh wow!
Because
What are they talking about in Bangladesh? And then we got to get to some other stories as well. But we do have Dr. Sharif with us. So what's the big conversation in Bangladesh?
Look, country like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, or South Asia, uh, our energy source around 90% come from Middle East and other countries. So in that situation, what I see that Bangladesh has energy crisis right now. Each and every petrol and gas stations, everywhere there is a crisis of these things. Also, government taking initiative and government sharing that we have available source of energy. Do not go for panic buying petroleum and gas and other things. Beside this energy sector, I just want to say this regional piece, because from here, from Bangladesh, let's say Middle East, not so far. Uh, Lebanon, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, Israel, not so far from here. So in that situations, this regional piece, we have lot of challenges. I told you that few Bangladeshi people already died for this war. Uh, and third, Bangladesh is a very strong ally for USA, definitely. We have agreement in between USA and Bangladesh. Our immigrations, our energy sectors, our agricultural business, our garments industries, many things has strong alignment with USA. USA definitely great friend for Bangladesh. US people also great friend for Bangladesh. US also has investment in Bangladesh. In that situations, I think that we need to focus on regional peace as soon as possible for managing this energy. Number two, this human safety and security issues. And number three is I want to share about this global diplomacy. We need global peace as soon as possible. USA can be major player to play as a uh, global peacemaking deal. That will be more important and more valuable for us. Mr. Rick.
okay, let's get back to. I'll lean on Drudge again. That's my crutch here when it comes to. So here's a New York Times article headline on Drudge that uh, Saudi's leader, Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Remember, he's the guy who cut up the journalist Khashoggi, had him murdered. Well, he's still our friend, and he was at the White House. No, actually, these are old people. But anyway, he's been on the phone with Trump, urging Trump to continue the war, even though Trump said he would suspend it yesterday. Um, all right, what else? Um, Oh, insider trading yesterday. So, Moments. before Trump announced he was suspending the war for 5 days yesterday, somebody placed $1.5 billion in futures contracts into the market. So somebody got insider information and quickly ran down the hall or ran outside with their phone and placed more than $1 billion in orders to take advantage of the announcement that Trump was about to make. And this is highly illegal. So somebody made hundreds of millions of dollars yesterday investing on the basis of hearing that Trump was suspending the war. But you know, people have gone to Martha Stewart went to jail for something like this when she went to prison. Well, she went to prison for lying to the FBI about doing something like this. And when Martha Stewart did it, it was to the tune of 80 grand. This is to the tune of $1.5 billion, but nobody expects anybody to be charged with this. Sasha.
I'd like to explain what makes a big difference between, for example, buying stocks and dealing with the futures. A stock is something that when the economy is doing well, the company is doing well, the stock price is supposedly rising, and all investors in that particular stock are making some money. Okay, that's normal story. It's valid for the last 200 years or so. In futures, it's a zero-sum game. You cannot make any money unless somebody on the other end will lose the same amount of money. So if someone make $1 or $1.5 billion, it means on the other end of the trade, investor or group of investors or thousands of investors, doesn't matter, lost exactly the same $1.5 billion. This is why this is not only punishable offense. I think it should be death penalty for using the inside information to extract money from innocent investors who were playing a fair game, trying to make some money, and all of a sudden, all the game is now undone. It's actually the people in the know, people close to administration, or maybe part of the administration, they manipulated the market, knowing that whatever they will gain will ruin the others, investors in the other hand. That's what it is, future trading.
And it's incredibly tempting to, if you have insider information, it's really hard not to act on it. Say you've got $100,000 in some stock and you get information, your buddy works there and they go, hey, you get a call. They go, I'm not supposed to talk to you, but we're about to go bankrupt. You've got $100,000 in that stock and you're supposed to just sit there as the value of that stock goes to zero. You really want to call, get out. And it's really tempting. But it's not fair because everybody's supposed to be investing based on their own research and not because they have a friend who works someplace.
The market these days is highly manipulated, and people, the closer you are to administration, the more chances you have to make money. The farther you are from administration, it's a losing game. So don't try even to play it. I'm sitting mostly on cash these days because with this market being so highly manipulated, it's impossible, virtually impossible, unless you're very lucky to make decent gain.
Yeah. So yesterday, the person investing in futures maybe made $300 million because they have a friend in the White House. And then other people who were investing honestly lost $300 million.
Exactly. What's a noise here?
It might be on Mark's end. let's see. All right, so this Friday, 3 days from now, is the next time that the TSA workers are going to miss a paycheck unless an agreement is reached is this Friday, which is bad because if they go one more set of 2 weeks without a paycheck, you're going to see even more people calling in sick. You're going to see more chaos at airports. ICE was at some airports yesterday, supposedly to help out, but according to people in line at the airports, ICE wasn't really doing anything. They're not trained to do anything. They were just standing there, except in one case, they pulled out somebody who was, I don't know, an undocumented immigrant and tackled a mom and her 2 kids and tackled her to the ground. And so they're not, ICE at the airport may or may not be helping things.
Well, that's the reality of life in today's America, where there is no Congress. Nobody's doing anything. I don't know how American people, for how long they can hold on to it, to a government that they're all paid a couple $100,000 a year or more, and they're not even showing up to do any legislation, to do any business whatsoever. How does it work? I'm surprised.
I don't know. I mean, so it's weird to be a lib in America because you want America to do well. This is my frickin' country. I've lived here for all of my almost 66 years. And, you know, I'm cheering for America, but you know, like we've got the midterms in less than 8 months, and you know, I don't want people to vote for Republicans because Republicans have been a fine political party in the past. Right now, they suck ass. They're the worst major political party since the Civil War. And so it's on the one hand, you know, you want everything to go well for Americans. On the other hand, you know, when somebody was complaining that 10 slices of cheese is $7. And it's like, well, okay. I mean, that sucks, but if it gets people to vote the Republicans out of control of Congress, okay. So here's a story from the New York Times. Trump, who calls mail-in voting cheating, just voted by mail. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, 34 countries around. Trump says we're the only country that has vote by mail. Trump is lying. 34 countries, that is 1/6 of all the countries in the world, have vote by mail. There's nothing wrong with it. You get your identity confirmed when you register to vote. They have signature checking. I think I had to verify because, you know, I don't sign my name very much. So every time I sign it lately, it looks different. So I believe somebody checked at one time when I voted and said, yeah, we need some further verification, which I provided. But like it's not like it's a free-for-all for voting by mail. And Trump uses it. He's used it for years. And he wants to shut it down under the SAVE Act, but he continues to use it. Let's see what else. Sasha, anything in Ukraine?
Okay, we have a Ukrainian show at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
As you notice, there is no more talks about the peace talks between Ukraine and Russia with the US participants. Why is that? Okay, I'll tell you why. On Friday last week, the Europeans made a new construction of helping Ukraine. What they're doing is they advanced to Ukraine $120 billion. Using Russian money, which are stored in Europe and which are essentially under arrest, Russia cannot touch them. They're using that as a collateral. So Ukraine is a borrower. Europe is a lender. So the borrower at some point would have to repay the lender, but on one condition, that Russia will pay reparation money to Ukraine. And if not, then Europe will use Russian money, which are collateralized, and as from that source, Europe will be repaid. So Ukraine will not pay back this money under all circumstances, except that Russia will pay Ukraine reparation. Okay? So why is it so significant? Not only has Ukraine got $120 billion, which is not so bad. Now, another thing is very important one. What's important is that now US and Russia, they cannot deal with these manipulations of a peace process, whereas the Russian collateralized money sitting in Europe, they would be used, half would go to Russia, supposedly to invest in the territories in Ukraine that they already grabbed, and other half would go to US to offset rebuilding process in Ukraine, supposedly, we don't know. Now it doesn't matter anymore. No Russia, no US will ever touch this money because they are now completely collateralized for this loan. So now comes next question. So US doesn't help Ukraine, US cannot touch this money. So what's the role? So now Europeans, they are helping Ukraine. They are buying and paying for the ammunition for Ukraine, the weapons and so on. But what's the role of US? What US is doing at negotiation table whatsoever? Why US has more rights than Cambodia or Japan or Nigeria or something? What? What US is doing there? Get the hell out of here. So now Europeans, they will dictate the terms of peace agreement, if any, or there may be no peace agreement and Ukraine will continue to kick up Russian assets. We'll see. America has no place at the table. They can knock and say, please let us come. We want to have no help. Get the hell out of here. We don't need your help. Done deal. Okay? So this is why there are no more peaceful negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, and with US being what US being what? Doing all kind of deals with Kushner and Witkov, with Putin, $12 trillion here, $2 billion or $2 trillion over there and over here. Done. Finita. No more $1 trillion. Guys, bye-bye. Witkov, what's her name? Kushner, you are free to go.
We could talk about Kushner. Kushner, at the end of Trump's first time as presidency, in 2020, early 2021, as a parting gift to Jared Kushner, Saudi Arabia gave him, a guy who'd never run an investment fund before, $2 billion to invest on their behalf. So he started a hedge fund. And when you run a hedge fund, you get, as a management fee, what you get, like 2% a year of just all the money in the fund, for plus any chunk of any profits you make. So basically, Saudi Arabia gave this inexperienced guy, we're going to pay you $40 million a year. And recently, they've given him more. Kushner now manages $6.2 billion in investments, which nets him at least $125 million a year. And this is the guy who's negotiating on Trump's behalf in the Middle East and I guess in Ukraine. But some more numbers. Russia is right now suffering crazy casualties in the highest levels of the war so far. Russia is losing 8,000 to 9,000 soldiers killed and wounded per week, which is a rate of 400,000 soldiers a year. Russia has lost 1.2 million men, largely, in this war so far. That's 0.75% of their entire population. It's 3 times the number of people we had killed in World War II. But I mean, Russia kind of has a history of losing a ton of people. They lost, I don't know, 10, 50, I don't know, how many million people did they lose in World War II?
Officially, the last number was 27 million.
That's crazy that Russia only has 160 million people. And in World War II, they lost 27. They have this history of just expending like.
Wait a second. 27 million was lost by Soviet Union, which was at that time much larger country.
Okay, all right. So say out of 350 million.
They lost a good 10% of their population. And as male population, they lost probably 40, 45 of male, maybe more.
So Russia is, this is the most costly. So anyway, they have a history of just throwing people into battle.
Oh yeah. They have a theory that nothing to worry about. The women will get more babies, and the population will be rebuilt quickly. So, but what's interesting that after the Second World War, until now, as we speak, there is 10, or actually over 10% more women in Soviet Union, in Russia than men. That's why Chinese men are coming to Russia, and they are marrying Russian women, especially in Siberia, in the Far East, and so on, start families together and so on. And I think that at some point, I think maybe in the next couple of years, there will be a referendum where these territories want to be in Russia or in China. I think the Chinese will win this referendum and just take all the Siberia and Far East away from Russia.
So Russia might be a good place to be if you're a guy with one leg who can't be sent into battle, right? You go to Russia, there are a ton of beautiful women. Russian women, food is probably pretty expensive, so they smoke instead of eat, so they're pretty skinny. So if you're missing a limb or two, get over to Russia because you can get a really nice girlfriend.
Yeah.
She might. Russia has a ton. Russia has a ton of women doctors, so you can get a woman who looks like a model, but works as a radiologist and can support.
Sure. They will take good care of you, and they will feed you, and they will look 24 hours a day. Yeah,
and you're fine until they run so short of guys that they start sending one-legged guys to the front.
Yeah, they give them protests or something too.
Yeah. So Jatovy is in a place where he can't call. He's messaging. He said Trump is losing badly in the polls, and we've mentioned it. But the new numbers for the day came out, and approval numbers on Nate Silver, who averages all the polls. 40.2%, 40.2 approve, 56.4% disapprove. By far the worst numbers of Trump's term as president this time around, approaching the net negative of right after January 6th. So Republicans are predicted with this level of disapproval to lose 28 seats in the House 8 months from now. They can only afford to lose 2. If they lose 3 seats, they lose control of the House. And that probably means Trump gets impeached again. The House holds a vote. and a simple majority is enough to put Trump on trial in the Senate, where it'll probably go the way it did the other two times he was impeached. It's a two-part process. The House votes, says, yeah, you did stuff that's illegal, that's bad. You go on trial. The Senate, votes pretty much along party lines, and Trump gets to stay president.
Yeah. Well, Senate is a guess. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. Probably, most likely, Democrats will get majority, but not 67.
So after Trump kind of encouraged the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, there was one more quick impeachment before he left office. And in the Senate, 57 senators voted to kick him out of office, which is the highest percentage voting for impeachment in history. Several other presidents have been impeached, but it still didn't hit the 2/3 level needed to kick him out.
So the only way how he was able to win the nomination and the election was that the Republicans very selfishly figured out that with Trump, who is a good fundraiser and who will back the existing candidates of Republicans for various positions, the governors, senators, whatever it might be, they have a good chance to actually retain these positions and be there for next at least 4 years. So they are pragmatically voted for Trump and keep Trump because he's a good fundraiser and he will support them. It's not always worked that way because he very often supports the opposite Republican candidate. This one is going into trash, but that's what they calculated. However, his style of governance now it's obvious that independents, first of all, they will not tolerate any more of this. The Democrats will be against him anyway. The majority of independents will be against. So he will have his MAGA. And even in MAGA, there are a lot of people who desert him. So even that probably will not help him.
So right now, the American voting public is 1/4 Republican, 1/4 Democrat, 1/2 independent. And Trump's approval among independents, and this is misleading because a lot of independents just don't pay much attention until a couple of weeks before an election. But among people who I guess pay enough attention to be polled, Trump's approval among independents, depending on the poll, is from 18% to 29%. Which he needs more of those people to prevail in the midterm. And he's losing. He hasn't lost Fox News yet. I'm not sure he could ever lose Fox News because of Fox News's business model. But you get Joe Rogan, who's at various times has been the world's most successful, most listened to podcaster, and generally leans conservative. But lately, Rogan's been kind of speaking up against ICE, against some of their policies, against kicking. Trump has been kicking dreamers out of the country. People, somebody who's 20 years old, was brought to America when they were 2 years old by their parents, doesn't speak Spanish. That person, is a year away from a college degree, has never broken the law. Trump's still kicking people like that out if he can catch them. And Rogan's saying, yeah, that's bullshit.
It's very bad business decision because America needs working hands. We
So,
need people who are ready to work honestly, paying taxes, and need this type of people.
so liberals like myself bring up that immigrants, undocumented, whether they're undocumented or not, they pay taxes. And often, because they can't get a social security card, they don't get anything for their taxes. That the U.S. makes a profit off of illegal immigrants because they can't.
I'm just getting lost. I just don't understand the fundamental difference between
So-
documented and undocumented.
And one more thing is U.S. population growth right now is a little under 0.5% a year. It's the lowest rate in history. And we're only making 80% as many babies as we need to keep the population stable if it weren't for immigration. So we do have room for immigrants. And it's not like, now we were getting a ton more immigrants under Biden than we are now, but we have room for some. All right, let's see what else we have.
So what's happening the latest in Trump versus Iran negotiations, or is it negotiations?
You hear different things. Yesterday we heard Trump said that negotiations were going well. And then Iran said, we're not negotiating. So it's hard to tell. Neither side is trustworthy. Each side is kind of, has reasons to bullshit. So let's see what pops up about negotiations today. CNN says, which is the first article that comes up, mixed signals on Iran talks as war rages on and oil prices climb back over $100 a barrel. An Israeli official said a deal to end the war does not appear to be tangible right now, as Israel carried out another wave of strikes across Iran, and Iran launched a bunch of missiles against Tel Aviv.
Okay, so there is no peace talks per se, because otherwise.
I mean, there probably are like low-level talks, where people are I'm sure that people are reaching out across, clandestine diplomatic friend of a friend channels to feel each other out. At some level, there are reasonable people on both sides, maybe not at the highest levels of leadership, but somewhere there are people who've worked in diplomacy for decades, who've managed to hold on to their jobs. And those people, if you watch like spy shows on TV, there are all these networks where people can, reach out through secret means to feel out the other side.
Perhaps. Rick, I have to get out to prepare for a Ukrainian show, so I'll see you later. Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. I got to find more stuff to talk about. There's a story here. Let's go here where there's, this is another story from Drudge via the Daily Star, which is like a semi-trashy tabloid out of, I don't know, England or Australia, I don't know, that says that billionaires are paying scientists to do research to grow headless clones. Billionaires are pumping cash into a cutting-edge tech company that works in the production of genetically engineered monkey organs with the hope that lab-grown human parts could be not far behind. So what they want to do is, you can't clone yourself and harvest the clone for organs. There have been a couple science fiction movies about in the near future, rich people doing exactly that. And it's terrible because your clone has a brain. You're basically murdering a version of yourself. But this company wants to be able to clone you minus your head. So you're not really murdering anybody, because with minus your head, you're just, meat and organs, and nobody's suffering. And so if you can grow a headless clone, that clone can be harvested for, new heart, new lungs, new kidneys. The company is named R3 Bio. And US billionaires are funding this research. And it's super creepy. But, if you had $11 billion and you didn't want to die, okay, grow a headless clone. And, we're going to have to get over our considering stuff creepy as we move into the future. The people who, A, have a ton of money, and B, are willing to do super creepy stuff. Like right now, tech billionaires will pay teenagers to give blood, and they'll get their old guy blood transfused with teen blood, and they think that it has health benefits. It's creepy. Does it have health benefits? Probably not as much as people like to claim, but there's just a lot of medical tech in the future that is creepy. Getting your body, your head frozen, so you can be brought back later when medical science is able to do that. Kind of creepy. The only celebrity who publicly says he wants to be frozen when he dies is Simon Cowell. And that's because Simon Cowell, is a celebrity who doesn't mind people thinking he's a kind of a dick. But there are probably lots of other, people who are interested in freezing technology. It's a bad bet, but it's better than anything else at this point. But they keep their mouths shut about it because they don't want people to think they're creeps. All right, what else? So there was the LaGuardia crash, and the FAA sent an investigator to get to the bottom of what happened. The investigator couldn't even get to the site of the crash because he was stuck in a TSA line for 3 hours. So even the guy who's in charge of airports couldn't get to the site of the little disaster. More TSA news. Nearly half of TSA agents are calling out sick at America's busiest airports. And the lines at these airports are average almost 5 hours long now. So if you want to catch your flight out of, let's see which airports these are. Bush International in Houston, 4.5 hour wait. So if you want to catch your flight, show up 6 hours ahead of time. Atlanta, show up 6 hours ahead. JFK in New York, 6 hours ahead. And if you're lucky, you'll make it on your flight. But it might become, as I said, even worse after this Friday, because Friday is another day that TSA should be getting paid and won't. So sick levels may go up even higher starting next week. Nationwide heat wave. So the heat has already broken records for March in 14 states and broken the U.S. average hotness for March. And the heat dome might be the biggest heat wave in U.S. history. And it's supposed to go on until the middle of next week. So stay hydrated. If your apartment doesn't have adequate air conditioning, call your local government, call 311 to see if they can help you find, especially with old people, heat can kill you. So, plan for what you're going to do over the next week or so to get yourself to a cool area. 80% of the country may break March heat records. So we'll see temperatures in the 90s by tomorrow across the whole southern half of the United States. Okay. So Americans are under stressed. Are stressed, and here's an article again from Drudge, which I lean on, has a list of the most stressed states. Louisiana is the stressiest state in America, weighed down by America's highest poverty rate, limited access to health care, and the worst mental health and depression statistics in America. In second place, Kentucky. In third place, New Mexico. I've lived in New Mexico, and yeah, it's stressy. It's a low-income state. It's a little chaotic. You look at Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and those shows are not unrealistic. There's a ton of meth in Albuquerque. The police department has historically been a little shooty. There's, wages are low. All right, the least stressed states, according to this list: South Dakota, followed by Utah, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Vermont. These states have strong economies, lower crime rates, better health care access. Okay. And I would say that a hidden cause of international anxiety is tech and AI. That AI is slowly reshaping the world of work, replacing tech has been replacing good jobs with shitty half jobs like OnlyFans model and Uber driver, DoorDash driver for a decade and more. And people have to have multiple crappy jobs. And yeah, people are freaking out. And they look for people to blame. Politicians exploit that. And AI, we don't acknowledge it as much and tech as much as we should as a cause for disruption, because it's to no political advantage. Go ahead, Mark.
Speaking of OnlyFans and everything like that, I did understand that the founder of OnlyFans, who was a Ukrainian, passed away. He was suffering from cancer and definitely gave a lot in his cause to cancer, but it made a lot of money. And I'm sure that they'll be dealing with his legacy as the OnlyFans.
Yeah, he was only 43 years old.
Again, he was only 43 years old, young man.
The moon got hit by a giant
Oh, that's the thing I was going to bring up to you, Rick, because this can actually help you wrap everything up and all along those lines. Because I got to get to the Ukrainian show and
Okay.
everything like that. But I did hear that apparently the Earth is moving at a faster rate that clocks can't keep up. So apparently the clocks are messing up because we've gotten the Earth moving at a slightly faster speed and everything like that. So I was going through some articles this morning. I ran across that article, so I didn't know if you had heard anything about
Yeah,
us.
so
The Earth.
in Boulder, Colorado, they have at the national, at NOAA, or the National Bureau of Standards, which is across the street from where I grew up. I used to take my dog across the street to poop on the lawn where the atomic clock is. And apparently, yeah, the rate at which the Earth is, going around the sun is slightly faster due to little irregularities in the orbits. Or I guess they're going to have to tweak the atomic clock to so that a year matches. A year is supposed to be how long it takes the Earth to go from to go around the sun and reach the same point where it was a year ago. And if that changes, then they got to tweak the atomic clock. So I used to walk Mitzi the poodle, a very embarrassing dog to have when you're in junior high. We got the dog, great dog, by the way, but poodles are, if you get a chance to have a poodle, they're great dogs. They're smart. They don't shed. We got the dog the dog came with the name Mitzi. So very embarrassing if you're walking the dog in ninth grade in 1975, or if the dog gets loose and you have to chase the dog across the lawn where the atomic clock is, and you got out of the shower and you're this 110-pound ninth grader in a towel chasing a poodle. Jatovi says that it's because that the Earth is spinning faster. So that the rate the year thing is the Earth going around the sun. The spinning is the length of a day, and Jatovi says it's because the ice is melting, which means that the average, I guess, height of everything on Earth is dropping because glaciers melt, and that flows into the water, and the land becomes lower. And it's like when an ice skater pulls in her arms, she starts like this spinning, and as you pull in your arms, due to conservation of angular momentum, you spin faster. So the Earth is getting tighter and spinning faster. So anyway, I wish I could go back to 1975 and walking a poodle. Things were simpler back then, even though I was like 5 years away from losing my virginity and hated it. Okay, another article until I'm just going to keep talking until I guess Mark turns me off here. Another article from Drudge. Exercise can strengthen a leaky blood-brain barrier, which can improve brain health and potentially fight dementia. So scientists have been putting mice on treadmills, and the mice who exercised, their brains stayed healthier, better, longer than couch potato mice. The blood-brain barrier, that is, your circulatory system has a lot of garbage in it, but there's a barrier that keeps most of the garbage out of your brain. That your body's okay with a bunch of garbage in your blood, except when it gets to your head, and then there's a bunch of, I guess, filters and gates that stop the junk so your brain doesn't get garbaged up. But that barrier starts to erode, your brain gets junked up, and this article says that the mice who exercised maintained the barrier better. And of course, if you put less garbage in your body, your brain will work better, which leads us back to Trump and his diet. All right. Another article: stolen dogs escape Chinese meat factory. So 7 dogs led by a corgi. These were dogs that were stolen by, I don't know, horrible assholes in China to be turned into meat. But they escaped. 7 stolen dogs, ranging from a tiny Pekingese to a massive German Shepherd, trekked 10 miles home, led by a corgi. And now they're famous on the internet, and I suppose that'll help them not get stolen again. They had to cross a huge multi-lane highway. The corgi herded the other 6 dogs to make sure nobody fell behind. There's a surveillance cam footage of the dogs on their journey. So freaking heartwarming, except for the part where thieves in China are stealing dogs to turn them into meat. What else? Come on, everybody. Kash Patel, the head of the FBI. Before he became head of the FBI, was investigated by the FBI. Or especially in 2022, Kash Patel was invested. This would have been under Biden. He was investigated where they subpoenaed more than 2 years of phone records, text messages, financial information. Jack Smith investigated him as part of an investigation as to whether Trump had interfered with the 2020 election and had hidden classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, which we know he did. We know, but at least the documents part. And Kash Patel was part of the investigation. All right, what else? U.S. Treasury has declared that the U.S. is bankrupt, that we have nearly 48 trillion in total liabilities or debt, and compared to only 6 trillion in total assets. So the U.S. is worth only $6 trillion, but we're on the hook for 48 trillion. What this means in real terms, also this debt does not include unfunded obligations of Social Security and Medicare. The government's balance sheet deteriorated by $2 trillion in financial year 2024. So, I mean, at the very least, it means we're paying a shit ton of interest on the national debt. But if we didn't have that debt, we could use that money to help Americans. What else it means, I don't know. But we are now over time, and I'm going to go away. Thanks for watching and listening. See you tomorrow.